Mr. Speaker, sir, thank you for indulging us and giving us the opportunity to respond or rather give comments or make comments, Mr. Speaker, on the 3 reports that have been tabled by our colleagues who serve as chairpersons of the various committees of this House. Mr. Speaker, I'll be brief and perhaps take you from what Senator Cherargei has said. Mr. Speaker, though I'll be a bit more measured, if I may call it that, Mr. Speaker, I hold the view, I agree with Senator Cherargei in trying to challenge and push our committees to do better, to give us reports that perhaps go over and above the call and the demands of Standing Order number 56. Why do I say so, Mr. Speaker? I say this, Mr. Speaker, because I know the history of how we came up with Standing Order number 56. This is a new Standing Order, Mr. Speaker, recently introduced into the House and even amended further to list the kind of reports that committees need to bring to this House. Previously, Mr. Speaker, there was no such demand placed on our committees. Many times committees will just go about their duties and it will be left to the discussions of the House on how you feel. Do you feel that a certain committee is effectively carrying out its mandate or any other thing, as you may want to imagine, Mr. Speaker? But it was felt during the exit report preparation of previous sessions of this House, Mr. Speaker, or terms rather than a session, that there was need to place better demands on our committees and have a huge ask of them, and ask of them that every quarter, each committee furnishes this House with reports on businesses that they've considered, and we thought through and said, what are the things that Kenyans continue to raise and demand of us as a House of Parliament on how we go about our work? That is why, Mr. Speaker, for example, you will find the demand that each committee actually needs to file a report on what is how much they have how much they've engaged members of the public in the business that is before them. Because, Mr. Speaker, this is in response to what we saw happening in the courts. So many laws were annulled last time, Mr. Speaker, simply on the basis that Parliament did not do sufficient public participation, yet it is a constitutional edict, Mr. Speaker. And that's why you read it in Standing Order number 56, 1B, Mr. Speaker. That is just as an example. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I have keenly listened from yesterday when the various chairpersons began presenting their reports on their performance as a House. And I agree with Senator Cherargei, Mr. Speaker, that apart from giving statistics and figures, Mr. Speaker, on the business that is before them. You know, Mr. Speaker, if you're not careful, as a chairperson of a committee or as a member of this House, Mr. Speaker, you can easily become a conveyor belt, because Parliament is blessed with very competent staff, Mr. Speaker, who can barely do anything and everything that you ask of them, such that you're just left as a member of Parliament to come and read what has been prepared of you, you know, and have a seat, go home. Mr. Speaker, we listened this afternoon, for example, just because I don't intend to be long on this particular point, to statements by the Committee on Health, Committee on Budget and Finance, and the Committee on Energy, Mr. Speaker. And they have told us the businesses that have been presented before them, what it is that they are considering, what they have concluded. Perfect. And I agree with them completely. But the further question, which Senator Cherargei is asking, and which I agree with him, and perhaps is a question of many of the senators that are before the House this afternoon, Mr. Speaker, is what is their response to emerging issues, Mr. Speaker? I say this, Mr. Speaker, because Parliament must rise over and above the statutory provisions of Parliament. Just makes laws, it represents. I believe, Mr. Speaker, that Parliament is a body that is alive. They know the challenges that ordinary Kenyans continue to face. Mr. Speaker, we cannot be consuming 40 billion of taxpayers' money each and every financial year, Mr. Speaker, just to dispense and, you know, share certain information that we continue to receive from different quarters, Mr. Speaker. And I say this with tremendous respect. I congratulate our chairpersons. It's never easy to lead a committee of Parliament. Hats off to Senator Roba leading our Budget and Finance Committee, the committee that has produced the most bills in this House, Mr. Speaker, and some of them very difficult. So when we say this, Senator Roba, is not out of a lack of appreciation of the kind of hard work that our chairpersons put in the work. But we say this because we want to make our committees better, Mr. Speaker. I have said this before this House, Mr. Speaker, and I continue to speak, that Senator Roba, if you read PFM regulations,